Hey, what's up, everybody? It's me, Ruben, here, and I'm with my co host.
Lily.
And today, Lily, what do we have to talk about?
So today we're going to talk about articulation agreements. So Mr. T, can you tell us a little bit about that? Like, what is it?
Sure. What's up, everybody? So, articulation agreements is basically an agreement that's signed between our school, the Brooklyn STEAM Center, or the entire Department of Education with partner colleges. And it's an additional way, in addition between AP courses or College Now courses that all of the students here can earn certain college credits from certain schools. So think about it as, and there's a couple of ways the articulation agreements can work, but think about it as kind of free college credits based on your classes here at STEAM.
So who are our partner schools?
So we have a couple of different ones, and we have certain ones for specific pathways. So our main partner for the most pathways would be New York City College of Technology. So we have articulation agreements set up with them for computer science, culinary arts, and design and engineering. We just signed on to with full stack development for St. Joseph's University right down the block over here. We also have articulation agreements for film and media set up with St. Francis College. We have for construction technology, two articulation agreements, one for City Tech and one for Pima County, which is out in Arizona. And we're continuing to expand on our articulation agreements. Right now, we have two in the works with SUNY Buffalo State. And then we have a few that the DOE has prepared with different post-secondary institutions with CUNY that have our school and then additional CTE schools. Even within the partnership, like George Westinghouse has articulation agreements with certain, post-secondary institutions.
So, what exactly do students do to benefit from this?
So there's a couple of things. So one of the biggest things is that you don't have to pay for as many courses as credits that are offered. And so when you guys leave here and graduate, everybody, not everyone is required to go to college, but everyone is required to tell me what their post-secondary plan is. So I need to know, today, our graduation, or not graduation, but our ceremony this year is June 16th. So before that, and really usually around May 1st, which is the national decision day for most colleges, I just need to know what your post-secondary plan is. And if you're going to one of the institutions that we have an articulation agreement with, that's going to be identified by me, and then I'm going to tell you what you need to bring on your end to make sure you get those credits. So you have the advantage of not taking classes, which results in the ability to take other classes that you would want to take rather than ones that you have to take. And also, the financial piece is just one, but also you get to curb your interest more for what you want. So, in other words, for instance, let's say you decide to go to City Tech and you're in the culinary arts pathway. If you score a college readiness score on the NOCTI exam, which our seniors will take in May, you're able to get basically a semester's worth of credits, up to 12, which traditionally is for a CUNY course that will be 4 classes, so 1 semester done. If you're in a SUNY or a Common App, like a private institution scenario, usually they give 15 credits, 5 classes. But this would be in addition to any either College Now courses, AP courses if you get a 3 or higher on the exam, or if you're in any dual enrolled courses, like some of our students are taking college courses through a dual enrollment program with Brooklyn College or Medgar Evers.
So would you say like an articulation agreement looks good for like colleges, or is it something that's more like private between you and a certain college, or would that be something that makes you look like a better candidate for something?
It's a great question. I think that it wouldn't necessarily it wouldn't be dependent, on, it in the process of you getting accepted to a college. It's more so as after you choose to go to this institution, and it's not necessarily the best reason to go is because we have an articulation agreement with them. But one of the things that I was told is that last year, about 70% of our students who continued who decided to attend college continued in their STEAM pathway. So it's not necessarily a factor in, I need to mention it on my resume. but it's more so of I need to be aware of it, what I get from it, and what the benefits are for me if I choose that particular college, or if I'm deciding between colleges, that might be a factor. But it's not something that would determine you getting accepted or not, or something to mention. You could mention it in a scenario where, let's say you went on an interview, right? Sometimes you're put on like a wait list and they're like, okay, come in for an interview so we could interview you. Or before they accept you, they want to interview you. And you can mention, well, yeah, I attend, the Brooklyn Steam Center. We have an articulation agreement set up because I'm in, the film and media pathway, or I'm in the culinary pathway, or the, cybersecurity pathway, whatever it is. That's a scenario that you could use it in.
So me as a cybersecurity student, what do you think would be the best way for me to benefit from this program?
I think that you should consider, as we transition now from the seniors to the juniors, there's a lot of events coming up for our juniors. So we're going to have a college fair on March 27th, March 30th and 31st. We're going to do an overnight trip to Pennsylvania. So you're going to start going and getting information from colleges if you're not starting to get them already, as the application process is pretty much finished for the seniors, and now it's the junior class's turn. And I think that, from a individual pathway perspective, thinking about, is this something I want to do in the future? Do I want to continue in my pathway? Do I want to hold it on the back burner because I'll always have the certifications that I get with it, and I could do something else that I'm passionate about or don't want to pursue it post-secondary? But it's definitely something that I would, always think about, as I move forward. When we talk about, proving that we have the articulation agreement, we're going to be, giving you instructions about how to prove it, sending you with a packet. We have copies of the agreements. You'll have to produce a transcript. There are certain, you might have to send a copy of your score for some of the certifications, or a copy of them. So things like that. So I would say, think about when you're doing the process. And we're going to have, like I said, a bunch of stuff coming up for the junior cohort. How important is that of a factor in picking a college for you? You guys have been exposed for a little over a semester now, so at least you could kind of see if you're interested in pursuing it post-secondary at this point, or at least if there's interest. I always tell students they don't have to declare a major until the second year, and it could always change, which is fine. But the end of the second year, you have to declare your major. So, you might want to hold it until later, and it's like, okay, you want to submit that, though, pretty much as quickly as possible, because if you don't, you might be enrolled in those same courses that you already have the credit for. So an example is our newest one, for St. Joseph's. You can get the Intro to Computer Science class, basically 3 credits completed, by showing them the documentation from us stating that you took either this one is full stack development, but like full stack development, you would show them that you completed it, and then you would be exempt from that class and you would get the credit for it. But if not, if you declare a major the first semester, they're going to give you that class.
All right, so say that I'm doing the full stack development agreement articulation, right? And that would only work if I went to St. John's College?
St. Joseph. So
St.
that's
Joseph, yeah.
one of the partner schools. We have a bunch of different ones. But that I'm just using as an example, but all pathways have at least one post-secondary institution that we have an articulation agreement with, and we're continuing to expand on that. One of the things that we talk about a lot in counseling about college and career readiness. What does it look like? And what we're starting to find out is it kind of looks like everyone has a certain benchmark for what college readiness is. Oh, it's, a certain grade. The DOE measures about your English Regent score or your math Regent score. They might look at your SAT math score. They might look if you've taken an advanced math after geometry or trigonometry, such as pre-calculus or calculus, statistics. The career aspect is really what we're focusing here, and kind of showing to the colleges we already have something in place where these students have already taken these. These are the certifications and the grades to prove it. So, they shouldn't have to take them again. The example that I always give that's very easy to visualize is that this year seniors, we went to Alfred State and to SUNY Delhi upstate. And SUNY Delhi has a construction technology program. So for there, that's an associate's program, so it's only 2 years. And the students take their OSHA 30 the first semester of their second year. Our students get the OSHA 30 done the first 6 weeks of 11th grade. Now, it's only worth 2 credits, but still, they've already met that certification, so why would they take it again?
So an articulation agreement seems like a good thing for someone who knows what they want to do. So like if they wanted to continue on in their pathway. But what advice would you give to someone who doesn't want to continue in their pathway?
So it depends on the articulation agreement. You don't have to major necessarily to get the credits from previous experiences, right? Because most of the articulation agreements that we have set up are for introductory classes. So, there are certain prerequisites that everybody takes regardless of what college they go to. Everyone needs a math. Everyone needs an English. Everyone needs a social science, psychology, philosophy, all of that stuff. So something like Intro to Computer Science can cover every major. Not necessarily, I'm going to do cybersecurity, or I'm going to do full stack, or I'm going to do web application. You could be a political science major and still have to take Intro to Computer Science as an option. So you could still get that one, waived. The articulation agreements is really just another way that you guys can get credit for prior learning and ultimately, get a leg up on your college credits in addition to any AP courses or college now or dual enrollment courses that you have in your own schools.
So I've heard of some people taking the path of when they go to college, they do 2 years in a college where they're not really committed to, or a college that doesn't cost a lot to get their introductory credits out of the way, and then transfer to a bigger university to do their major and things like that. Would an articulation agreement help in that process?
So that's probably on a case-by-case basis, but my gut feeling would say no, probably, because most of the articulation agreements that we have that are on file would be for introductory classes, which they would take in their first 2 years while completing their associate's degree in whatever it is. And it could be liberal arts, it could be major specific, like associates in construction, like at Delhi. But usually that articulation agreement would be set up there. But there's also different aspects about articulation agreements. So one of the aspects is guaranteed admission. So that means that if you apply, if you're in STEAM, you're going to be accepted, okay? Provided that you meet the criteria that we have listed on the articulation agreement. So for St. Joseph's, we have set up where either you get the certification in full stack for whatever it is, HTML or CSS or whatever program it is, or you have an 80 average in the class. Even if your total GPA is below the requirement for the college, you're guaranteed a seat because of the articulation agreement. But I think a lot of students start out like that, where they do their prerequisites somewhere for a year or two, and then they try to go for their bachelor's in a higher ranking, private institution because of monetary reasons, financial reasons, academic reasons. I always tell students that if you don't get into your dream school the first year, that doesn't mean you don't get into your dream school. That's really a process, and it's definitely not a sprint and more a marathon to reach our goals. And so that's something that I think is very plausible still if you want to, do it like that. But I don't think it would serve a purpose to do it then because it would probably count previously for the associate's degree experience and credits.
So students don't really need to go out of their way or do any extra activities or programs in order to satisfy the criteria of the articulation agreement in the junior year, correct?
So I'm not sure I fully understand the question, but I think what you're asking is, do they have to do anything else besides the benchmarks listed?
Yeah.
No. So it's only the benchmarks listed in the articulation agreement. That's just an example of one of them is guaranteed admission. Not all of them look like that. The one that we just signed with St. Joseph's does look like that, but not all of them. So some of them, they might not guarantee admission. But they will give prior learning credits. And like I said, it could be 3 credits, it could be 12 credits, depending on how it's set up. But there's nothing to say it's junior year counts just as much. You still have to meet those benchmarks because everyone takes various certifications in each pathway at different times. So it's all cumulative. But let's say you in the situation where you failed one certification but passed another one. In the articulation agreement, if you didn't meet the second benchmark, you could still get credit for the first one. Okay, they're independent of each other.
So you said something earlier about I think a benchmark for an articulation agreement would be to have an 80 or above in a class.
That's specifically for full stack development, but yes, or pass the certifications. So it could be either or is the way that we wrote it inside the agreement, and the department had agreed on it, and the provost, who basically, provost is a title in universities that's kind of like the second to the president, so consider it like the assistant principal of our school. So that they have to sign off on it to approve the agreement. So it would be either or. So if you have one, you don't need the other component. If you don't have one, you do need the other component, but it doesn't have to be both. But that's just that particular agreement because that's the one that I've worked on. The others we already had established before, and they were either done by Dr. Damiano or from the DOE independently. Through the Career Technology Education CTE, which is what we are, head of for the DOE.
So for an articulation agreement, is your acceptance or having that agreement, is it done individually, or if you're in that cohort and you meet the requirements, you automatically qualify?
No, so it would still be. So I just want to make sure I understand the question. Are you saying that everyone needs to apply individually, and that's what it's going to be determined on, or are you asking if it's going to be determined by what's in the agreement?
So an articulation agreement isn't something that you automatically qualify for. You have to apply for it for yourself.
That is correct. So in other words, when you leave here, when you are ready to graduate, if you're using the articulation agreement, you're going to be the responsibility of you as the student to go to the continuing education office, which every school has, and saying, here's a copy, here's my documentation, this is what I was told, and then to make sure that it's correct. So if it says you're going to be able to get 6 credits, which is 2 classes, credit for that, then you make sure that those are on your degree works or whatever program that they're going to use to evaluate your transcript. That's really, really important. And that's a requirement, right? They agreed to do that. Another portion of the articulation agreement that we sign at the STEAM Center is that the college representatives come to what's called the Advisory Council. And the Advisory Council happens over the Regents Week. It happened this past January. It happens in June. And it's really to create a team of educators, students, and higher education partners and people in the pathway-specific fields to see what has changed. Are we teaching scholars the right amount of stuff for the pathway? So do we need to focus more for cybersecurity about cyber attacks? Or, in culinary, are we doing enough about, alternative proteins, right, instead of just, meat? So those kinds of things would be addressed at the advisory councils, and that's an interdisciplinary team of all those. So the expectation in the articulation agreement is that colleges bring somebody from that particular department. So if it's culinary, it's going to be a culinary teacher. Full stack or cyber will be a computer science teacher, kind of to the table to analyze, this is what we're doing here, this is what you're doing here, it's not really adding up, or you're doing a good job, or what could be improved, or what's working well, things like that.
So let's say I was a senior right now, and I was interested in an articulation agreement. What would my steps be?
So the first step would be to come see me. So we could discuss what school you're interested in, and then if we have an existing articulation agreement with them, then me going into the system and looking at the articulation agreement with you and kind of explaining what you have the options to get, and how it's going to help you in the future. And that's really what we want to do, is create that dialogue. Share this information with parents as well is really important, because at the end of the day, students, between the articulation agreements that we have set up here, the AP courses that you take in the homeschools, the dual enrollment courses, the College Now courses, you could realistically graduate and be in STEAM probably with 1 year of college done easily. I mean, it's happened before. It could definitely happen again, depending on if the school fits, and we have the agreement set up with them, and then what you're doing in your other classes.
So, apart from showing proof of your articulation agreement, are there any obligations of a student has opted into an articulation agreement?
For the student, no. There's stuff that we as the STEAM Center have to do on our end, and then there's expectations for the post-secondary institutions that they have to hold up. But we really want to make sure that the students are supported and that they know where to go and what to present. So that's laid out before, because what happens is often it gets a little crazy at the beginning of the school year, and people are not in the right places that they should be, and we're trying to avoid that. So especially if you get into any of the opportunity programs that are out there, like SEEK or ASAP or EOP or HEOP, which are for students who are both economically and academically disadvantaged, you don't have a dedicated advisor who could really walk you through that process like you would if you were in one of those opportunity programs. So we want to make sure that you have that before, and you know exactly where to go, what to present. And the expectation is once you present it, that it gets done. This past January at the alumni mixer, one of the students was like, "Oh, Kingsborough has never given me any credits for our articulation agreement." So I reached out to the counselor there. I CC'd the alumni member and tried to get it done for her, because that's what happens if you're not on top of it. That's just how college works. There's no guidance counselor.
All right, well, I think that's going to wrap it up for our discussion around articulation agreement. I think we learned a lot. I think we could definitely benefit from this as STEAM students, and you could definitely learn a lot about this and help it in your future. So, that was Mr. T, Lily. I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast.
Thoroughly.
Thank you for coming on the show, Mr. T.
Thank you.
Peace out.